Good evening. Good evening. Let's try again. Good evening. Okay. So Mambo number 5, what does it mean? I don't know. I just like that music, So we're now entering easy mode, smooth. Okay. No streaming anymore. No monads. No cart effects. Someone will be talking about AWS Lambda afterwards, but mine is Scala and Kotlin 101, right? So you can find the slides here, and I'm just picking some features. Let's start a little bit about me. I'm a contractor. My name is Anthony. I'm originally from Brazil, but my accent is all over the place because I live in Scotland. I lived in Ireland. I lived like all over the place. So yeah, it's confusing. I've been doing Java for like 16 years now. I started getting to Scala back in the days of like Scala 2.8 or 2.9 when like parallel collections were new, we had the actor system. And my last client was doing Kotlin using a blockchain solution called Corda, which is very interesting, an enterprise blockchain solution. And I converted myself into a Kotlin developer, right? So before we go on, I just want to, I assume everyone here is a Scala developer. Is everyone working with Scala professionally?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Anyone is using Scala 3 in production at the moment? A few folks, like most of you are using Scala 2, right? Is anyone using Kotlin profession? Nice. So we have a couple of people. And I assume that the background of everyone here is Java, right? Okay. So like I said, this talk is, I've been in Kotlin. The last time that I did some Scala, I was still using Scala 2.0, and I'm teaching myself Scala 3. And I'm finding that some interesting things are happening that we're going to discuss here. First of all, I have stickers. I'm going to bribe you guys to interact with me, although no need. You guys are interacting with speakers already. So who knows Java is 20 years old? Who knows when was Java's birthday?
Last Wednesday.
Yes.
In the 90s. That was actually a guess.
Good guess. Or I don't know how to count, but you get the sticker anyway. So the thing is, Java is 28 years old already, right? That's a lot of time. But what we're failing to consider is Scala is pretty old already, right? So Martin Odersky was working on the pizza language, but he started the design of Scala in 2001. And I'm the kind of guy that still thinks that the 90s was 10 years ago, but like, yeah, time doesn't work like this. So depends on if you're going to count the design. Scala is now 22 years old. If you're going to count for Scala 1.0, Scala is now 19 years old, right? Kotlin is much newer. It's from 2016, the latest version. And Scala 3 is from 2021. And the interesting thing is, the designers of those languages had the chance to learn from the mistakes and also from what went well from each other. So second sticker. No, I'll save this one. This has happened 6 months ago. That guy that is the back of the guy there is Andrei Breslov. He's one of the designers of Kotlin, right? And I have not made this up. This is a real slide of his talk. It's called In the Shoulders of Giants. I have the link here if you want to watch. It's very nice. It's about language that influenced Kotlin, right? And yeah, what he's saying is true. when I first got started like working with Kotlin, everything that I was trying to do, I couldn't do it as expressive as I could do in Scala. I mean, even pattern matching like Kotlin has when and things like that. But yeah, you don't have the same thing. No monads, no effects, no. Uh, there's always you can implement like libraries and you can do some interesting stuff, but it felt like something is missing. But then it has grown on me because the compiler is fast, the tooling is good, and I can get paid for doing it. It's an interesting thing, right? One thing for every time that I give talks about Kotlin, people ask me, oh, isn't this an Android thing? Yes and no. I never wrote one line of Android code in my life. I'm only doing backend development. A lot of the nicer Java is migrating to Kotlin, so you have like great supporting frameworks like Micronaut, Spring Framework, and you have a whole ecosystem beginning to happen around Kotlin. This has also happened, right? This is Kotlin Conf 2022, even Andrei Breslov. So the other picture was the watered down version, right? So yeah, this is true. Scala is a more powerful language. There is no denying around this. Scala 3 has a better compiler, better pipeline, it's faster. It feels faster, although it crashes way more often, at least with IntelliJ. It's also simplifying itself. And that's one of the first things that I'm starting to notice. The design of those languages are starting to converge. And they are learning from each other. And some of the things that I liked in Kotlin started appearing in Scala and vice versa, right? Scala 3, we had like 5 or 6 hands here, but it's still, as far as I can tell, finding its place in the industry. Some libraries were just recently ported. There's lots of things that are still on 2.13, and you have compatibility layers. And yeah, it's still easier, at least to me, to find a job doing Scala 2 than Scala 3. Okay, and now, I come to a conference full of Scala developers. Let's take cheap shots on Scala. That's a smart thing to do, Okay, what is that? It's fold left. Okay, that's the rule that I know, but that would answer me that. But why, right? I mean, really, why? Okay, this feature, it's not even Scala 3. If you go to, I will do it. Scala 2. Let me sit down. Can you see it well? Okay, so yeah. So this is deprecated, right, from Scala 3. We have fold left. We don't need this unary like anonymous parameters. And we have a sum method that does the exactly same thing if you just want to sum two things. Fold left is very powerful. You don't need to use it to sum elements in a list, right? And this is perfectly valid Kotlin code as well. So Kotlin. So here you go. This is Kotlin. A little bit difference, like by Kotlin standards, we use brackets at the end instead of parentheses, and we don't need parentheses for the parameters. In Scala 3 now you need it, like Scala 2 you didn't need it. And you also, there is no zero arity magic translating from, so you have to put the parentheses. It's basically the same thing, right? Again, this is just like a cheap shot, but Scala 3 is actually cleaning a lot of things from Scala 2. So from the syntax, you have now a quieter optional syntax. Symbols are being deprecated. The RT0 magic that we spoke about. Implicits are being broken down and cleaned up. Macros, some people are complaining that they are become less powerful than before, but they are cleaning up. Existential types, and there is much more things. There is a whole list of things that have been deprecated in Scala 3, right? And the interesting thing is the way that Scala 3 is cleaning things is getting it closer to Kotlin. And I picked some examples out of that. So let's go to the examples, and I'm not going to run through the slides. If I forget something, we're coming back. So first thing that you do as a developer, first time that you start, I don't know, you're starting with Java, right? The first thing that you're going to do is probably write a hello world code. So okay, and if you're working with education, you have your first problem right here, right? All this boilerplate, what is a class, what is static, what void means, and the person already went back to Python or JavaScript, and then he'll figure out that there's dunder methods and other magic going on, but he'll stick with the language that he likes, right? Things are getting better, even on Java land. So there is a GAP 445, where we're basically run by Ron Presler, the same guy that is doing Project Loom. So you can now have like a top level main method and it will work. It's an experimental feature on Java 21. And you have projects like JBang, you have JShell for people to explore things and how to use a repo. So Java is nowhere as bad as it was before. But Scala came with all of it out of the box, and that was revolutionary, right? So you had Scala to me. Okay. The main method of Scala is a little bit better than the Java one. There's still some magic. What is unit? Why do I need an object? But it's better, right? But old school Scala, well, first you have a repo out of the box. You also have scripts. You could do this. If you have a Scala installed in your environment, you can just put a shebang and, okay, this may not work that well on Windows, but yeah, here you go. It can be slow, and there are some problems with it. And okay, so maybe that one is worth a sticker. So Scala 2 me up. So Scala made it even simpler. We have like an app trait, and it uses something called delayed init, and it hits the whole construction of the main method. Is anyone working with Scala for more than 10 years? Can anyone tell me what trait has app replaced? There is an even older trait that did the same thing. No. So there was a trait called application on Scala 2.8, and the problem was it uses static initializer, and then the hotspot and the Git compiler couldn't do its things. There were concurrency issues, and basically they deprecated and created the app interface. So the most advanced thing that I'm going to talk about you guys today is that this delay init interface, which basically delays initialization so that you get rid of all of this problem, this is going away in Scala 3, right? That means that you still have this up trait, but you likely don't want to use it because there will be several problems. So Scala, okay, let's do Kotlin first. So with the hindsight of being coming later than Scala, Kotlin made it even easier. It has top-level functions already. Arguments are optional, so no one can complain about the main method in Kotlin, right? And guess what? That's where Scala 3 is going. So, Scala 3 now has an annotation called main, and you can annotate any top-level function with it, and it will create the entry point for your application. But of course, we are Scala developers. We always want to go like one step further. There is always something powerful that Scala can do. So Scala 3 typed. Yeah. So Scala 3 can have strong typed arguments on main method. So if you want an integer or you want even some complex objects like a date or things like that, it will parse for the command line arguments for you, and it will deliver what you need. So Java's birthday is here somewhere because I already passed the argument. And yeah. Okay. Okay, there are third-party tools that have been evolved, and some of those features are also making to the language. So Scala CLI could do some of this strong parsing and some of the script handling. Kotlin is doing something similar. You can even have dependencies from like Maven Central declared on the top of your script, and it will download it for you. So yeah.
Like Groovy 10 years, 15 years ago.
Yeah, like Groovy had. And actually, speaking of Groovy, my main contribution of this whole talk is I created a Gradle project that has submodels for Scala 2, 3, Java, and Kotlin. So yes, you can find online playground, but this one has everything and it runs within IntelliJ with code completion, and it took way longer to get this done than I thought it would. Okay, so let's talk about another thing that is very basic, but it was one of my personal issues with Scala 2, right? Enums. Who likes Scala 2 enumerations here? Like Hayes or Ren? No, nobody, right? So it was too powerful, you know, and I can understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, sometimes you need the type of your object that is being represented from your enumeration to be just an integer. That's what C and that's what you could do with C++, right? And sometimes you need something more complex. But this syntax is so awful. Like Java is cleaner than Kotlin. Others he really liked that syntax, so that was like there were many discussions in the mailing list and discourse and things like that around this. But yes, there were all sorts of issues. Frameworks wouldn't play well, and then everyone was hand rolling their own enums, right? So they would use abstract data types and have sealed classes and traits. There were even libraries that would do that for you. There one called enumerator, enumeration, something like that that I used to use. And yeah, no frameworks would play well with it. Powerful, but not practical, right? Scala 3. Has proper enums. and it works it does exactly the same thing as you can do with Java. You can do even better because you can have companion objects and you can inject all of Scala power into that. And yeah, it's pretty clean, pretty powerful. I don't know why we need this case. Like it could just be the name of the Enum, just like it is in Java, but yeah. And it is interesting because Kotlin is doing pretty much the same thing, right? Constructor here, you can have valves, or you can make it private. You can have top level constants. You can have companion objects. You can inject all of the power that you want. And I don't know why we need class here. It's just an extra keyword, exactly like in Scala, right? Cool. Another thing, pimp my library pattern, right? Implicits all over the place. When you don't have access to modify something yourself, you would create a rich class and you would like implicitly convert to it. So the cleanest version of Scala 2 extension methods. The cleanest version of like an extension function that I could write in Scala 2 is this one. So I'm creating an implicit class that receives a string, and I'm implementing a palindrome method, and then since it's an implicit class, it will auto-cast to that class, and you can use palindrome in a string, right? There is one thing here, you could make it extends any vol, so that you don't necessarily need to wrap it, but there are several limitations with inlining classes. I was going to bring into that talk, but I decided to leave it out. Kotlin came later. And again, with the hindsight of the design of Scala in mind, they made it something very simple. You have a receiver type, in this case is a string, and you implement the extension method just by doing receiver type dot name of the method, right? And this opens room for some powerful constructs. You have like receiver literals, so you can have lambdas with receivers. That allows you to do some interesting things in terms of DSLs, like type safe binders. So if you go to the Kotlin manual, the documentation is pretty good. You're going to find lots about it. And you know what? Scala 3 is now newer than Kotlin, right? So Scala 3 is extension functions. Same thing, right? The only difference here is that you have an extension keyword instead of the name of the class directly. I kind of like Scala versions better. If you want to do it in one line, you can. But if you want to implement multiple functions, you can just do that. In Kotlin, you have to repeat the name of the class. So that's the difference. And that's one of the 300 different uses of implicits that Scala 2 have that has been broken down. But Scala 3 is doing a lot of breaking down of implicities as well. So you have new keywords like using and given, and yeah, I'm not going to be there, but when you look at this code, it's clear that it is an extension function. You don't have to think about it, right? Okay. So we're getting to to the end of it. So my main point here is lots of good things are happening in terms of language design. Kotlin and Scala 3 will always be the more powerful language, more experimental. EPFL guys like it's a different breed of language altogether. But I'm happy when things are converging to simpler things. You know, this is good news for us. Kotlin has some interesting ideas of its own. Although Scala is the more powerful language, Kotlin experimenting with things like, I don't know, no safety, right? They have continuation systems with coroutines building. So the nice things that we had baked in Scala 2.8 to 2.9 before they break down, like actors and things like that, they implemented a very simple version of actors using coroutines in the main library, right? It's not going to be Akka, but there's something, right? It is a Scala developer in 1 or 2 weeks will be reasonably fluent in Kotlin. It's not hard at all. So if you find a Kotlin job, don't be scared to change. And finally, choice is a good thing, right? So this is less about language wars and more like it's great that we have languages like Clojure, Groovy, Scala, and Kotlin, the JVM ecosystem, and we can basically mix and match. And that's it. That's it for me. You first. Thank you. So functional programming goes to the first slide of Andrei Breslov, right? You don't have higher kind of types. It's hard to like compose effects and things like that. Having said that, you have libraries like Arrow and like Kotlin's trying to do something, right? But it's not going to be Java strings level of things, but it feels like something is missing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, so this is like very interesting point you said about all the JVM languages converge and like Kotlin has coroutines and continuations. Now Java has support for Project Loom, where like all the blocking code becomes asynchronous. And like if you see in this talk by Martin Desky about also continuations and more direct style, so like if it's gonna converge, like how it's gonna converge, like will effects libraries will just disappear?
So
how will it like continue from now on?
It's interesting. So Kotlin had a library called Quasar by Ron Presler, the guy that is leading Project Loom, right? And Quasar implemented fibers, implemented actors, implemented all sorts of concurrence utilities. Quasar is dead. Basically, there is no updates on GitHub. Having said that, the languages and like people at JetBrains are not dead, right? And folks in the Scala ecosystem are also there. So there's an interesting talk by Roman on how they are going to retrofit Project Loom with Kotlin coroutines on their side. And you already mentioned native support for coroutines and things that are coming to Scala 3, right? So the way that I see it is we're going to leverage what the JVM provides, right? But there is a gap, right? The way that we do coroutines in Kotlin is very different from the way that they're doing fibers in Java, like reusing the thread interfaces and executor polls and things like that. So I think that there will be a clash and there will be a new normal on top of Loom. That's my opinion.
And does, in your opinion, like direct style has any perspective in the Scala community? It's like we get away from monas and just like, oh yeah, I just need this. I don't care how it's done.
This is the kind of question, like, I don't know, if you ask, is like higher kind of types that were discontinued in Scala 3, lots of folks were mad about it, right? Because they needed it. it's difficult to say. You know, there is always application and power and control of going lower level, right? And there is reason to abstract it and make it simpler as well. So I know that I'm not answering your question, but that's.
Opinion.